What's up, gang? Today we're gonna look at how I made my track Full Repeat, which was out earlier this year on Loud Memory Records, and I believe it was racked up over 200,000 streams on Spotify. We're gonna go full in depth, and by in depth I mean literally cover each and every element in the track and see how we, came across making it. And yeah, that's about that. So without further ado, let's jump into Ableton. Okay, guys, here we are inside of Ableton. Before we dive deep into understanding each and every element of the track, let's first have a quick preview, especially for ones that haven't heard the track, or you're just coming across this video but you haven't really heard this track. Let's go.
Drop the bass, let's shake the ground. Move your body, don't turn around. Back to back into your mind. Side to side, look so divine. Let the music take control. Feel the rhythm, lose your soul. Move and sing to the beat. Put this jam on full repeat. Put this jam on full repeat. Put this jam on full repeat. Feel me. Oh yeah. Drop the bass, let's shake the ground. Move your body, don't turn around. Back to back into your mind. Side to side, look so divine. Let the music take control. Feel the rhythm, lose your soul. Move.
Okay, I think that's good enough of a preview. We obviously listened to the build-up, the drop, the first drop rather, and we also listened to a little bit of the break and moving into the second build-up. Yep, so let's dive in, decipher all the important elements. Let me first disable all the track. We're gonna enable them as we cover each and every element. Feel like that's a good approach. So first and foremost, obviously the kick, very important, especially for dance music. Even more so, I would say, for any kind of tech house or bass house type of track. On this occasion, however, I did go with a singular kick, so it's just one kick. And the reason this kick works, in my opinion, is if you look at the shape, it actually has a very decent body, and it actually has a pretty prominent transient. So let's have a look at listen to the kick itself, solo. So as you can see, the transient right here, there's a transient, and then there's also a body that's quite, subby, and the transient's obviously cutting through the mix. So as a result, I didn't really need to, layer it with another kick or anything like that, although that's quite popular, and I have done that in tracks in the past, and I still continue to do it. Yeah, let's look at the processing. Nothing too crazy, just using kick tweak. I believe this was made popular by Chris Lake. I think once everyone figured out Chris Lake was using it on a lot of his kicks, everyone started using it, and I'm one of those people. I generally go with module 4 or 5, and I always use 50%. I feel that way it's not an overkill. And yeah, let's do a before and after. I think the difference is gonna be pretty noticeable. So this is before without the kick tweak, and this is after. Yeah, so obviously the volume goes up. There's a little bit of saturation, and I believe it does also do a little bit of transient shaping, because I can definitely hear the click a little bit more present after a kick tweak. That's the kick, very simple, nothing too crazy. What I'm doing with the EQ is essentially just automation. So I use the gain function here for EQ to also automate the volume during the build-up, during the breaks here, and also obviously low cutting to take it to take out all the low end of the kick, so there's more impact when the drop actually hits. Now let's move on to the drums. First up, we got a clap. Very simple. It's pretty much a tool room sample pack loop. I love using loops, by the way. I know I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate for using loops, but if you use them right and if you use them creatively, I think they're a great source of sample. Looking at this loop, the reason I picked it, it's because it's quite dynamic. Have a look at this. I think the first clap and the second clap does look quite different from each other, not just in terms of volume, but in terms of just the waveform itself. It tells you, you can immediately tell there is some dynamic sort of processing involved. Yeah, so good loop, found it, used it. Second clap, kind of different from the first. I would say the second one, the second layer of clap you're hearing is definitely a little bit more on the organic side, whereas the first one is, you can almost tell it's synthesized using white noise. There you go. So together, first and second layer together. Yep. That got the job done as far as claps go. Then we got hi-hats. Again, tool room sample pack loop. As you can tell from the 4 hits over here, each one of those hits are actually a little bit different from one another. And again, that's very important in my opinion. These small details is what makes a track flowing versus a track that sounds static and monotonous. We're layering that with sort of another shuffling hi-hat loop here. So there is the second loop actually contains an open hi-hat and a closed hi-hat in the offbeat over here. And if you look closely, you're gonna notice that it's actually a little bit swung. So that adds to the flavor as well. Now let's listen to all 4 of these elements together. Next up in the loop, we got a ride loop, and this one's coming out of Noizu sample pack. I believe I like a lot of the Noizu samples, and I often used to use a lot of his rides. I think I still do, to be honest. But this one, not very dynamic, but it gets the job done. And this is one of those elements that's actually not in the foreground, it's rather in the background. So I'm not necessarily looking for a lot of dynamicity per se. Let's have a listen. Yep, gets the job done. The last loop that I have over here is very much what you'd call a top loop. There's claps, there's hats as well, and there's a perk over here that's additional. Let's have a listen. So I played that for 4 bars, sort of on purpose for you guys to realize that the perk over here actually exists only in the first 2 bars. So we got it here, but it is not here and is also not here. And that's predominantly for call and response. So there's some elements that I have in section A, I don't have them in B, and this kind of plays along with the main lead elements as well in the track. It sort of gives it the same feel and rhythm. This is pretty much done on purpose. And yeah, let's play all the loops together. Along with the kick. Great. Now let's look at some of the additional perks. So the thing about me and perks is that whenever I'm using percussions, I generally always pick a little bit of a sample from an existing loop. Very rarely will I use a one-shot perk to my drum kit, let's say. So if you look at this one, you stretch it out, boom, there you go. It's actually a part of a loop. This one, same story. Stretch it out, it's a part of a loop. I'll play them individually just for you guys to have a feel of what kind of perks I'm looking for. Essentially what I'm looking for is just small hits to accentuate different parts of the bar, and that's it. So it's kind of to help accentuate and fill in gaps where there is in other drum elements, let's say. There you go. That's it. So we got, a couple of singular perk elements, pretty much most of them taken from other loops, I would say. And let's listen to the entirety of the drums along with the kick. Now, if you look at the perks, you're gonna notice this section is quite busy, right? You got 1, 2, 3, 4 different types of perks playing. And the reason that particular section is busy is because it actually acts as a response to the call that the lead sounds are making, which we're gonna dive into a little bit. And that is key, right? We got section A, we got section B, we got another section over here, and then followed by another one over here. And the lead sounds themselves are also doing a call and response, which we're going to dive into a little bit. But just wanted to share this point here because it really shows that the call and response doesn't just have to be between the synths per se. You can easily have a call done by, let's say, a synth, and then a response done by the perks. Works completely fine. I mean, I made it work here. I'm sure a lot of other artists are doing the same thing. Great, we're done with the drums. Let's actually jump into the bass line, because I think those 3 elements right there, kick, drums, and bass, or kick, bass, and drums, are pretty much the foundation of most house, tech house, bass house, EDM genre tracks, let's say. Yeah, this one, your usual serum coming into effect here, and I went for the very trusted, might have just messed it up with, no, we're good. I've trusted the evolution of sound, which is Zen World. I think the guy makes like super good, sample packs and presets. Definitely should take, buy his samples. I think highly recommend it. Again, he's not sponsoring this video or anything like that. I'm literally just a big fan of a lot of the stuff that he cooks up. And yeah, this bass line made a lot of sense because it actually has a good transient, but it also has a good body. So it allows me to not only have sort of 1/16 notes, but I can also have sort of elongated, what you would call, 1 beat and a half over here. So this is kind of like we have a whole 16th note and a half of a 16th note, and that's important because that gives me the luxury of having sustained notes, but also like plucky notes, as you can see here, the 1/16 ones. Yeah, so let's listen to the bass line as solo. Oh, didn't turn it on. Yeah, nothing too crazy, I would say. The bass line, it just, it fills up the spectrum until 1,000 hertz or so, as you can see here in the filter. Anything over there, I'm just shaving it off to give more space to the vocal and the lead sounds and other stuff. But in terms of processing, honestly, it works. There was no need to drive the saturation more than it already is. You can see the preset already has distortion running through it at 100% dry wet. There's no need for me to add more distortion. We're only gonna add information that we really need or is missing. On this occasion, it felt fine. Let's play those elements together. Again, the foundation of the track: kick, bass, and drums. Let's hear it. Yep. I mean, you can tell right away I already got the groove going. From this point onwards, I mean, this is pretty much 60% of the track done, right? Now you have a strong foundation, and it gives you a lot of open ideas for what you want to do with the lead sounds. Do you want to add a vocal? Do you want to add, a lot of synths? Do you want to keep it more minimalistic, strip back? Really, the options are endless. But the point is, this is sort of 60% of the track done, I would say. And this takes a while. I mean, getting this foundation right, finding a kick that matches well with the bass line, and finding drum samples that complement both of those features is where you should be spending majority of your time, in my opinion. Great, so we got that sorted. Now let's look into some of the lead elements. First up, we got, a stab over here, or more like a combination of two different samples. Let's hear the first one, which I believe is a choir sample, as we can see over here. Yep. And then the second one, interestingly, is actually a beatbox effects one shot from the Kashmir sample packs. God bless that guy. I mean, if it wasn't for him, I think half the producers would basically have nothing to work with, especially the producers that started producing back in, I want to say, 2018 and 19. That's when the Kashmir sample packs were really peaking, and it's still a great source of samples for me. I'll always download all his packs. I mean, I don't even listen to the samples. I just download them all off of Splice, and you guys should do the same, in my opinion. So yeah, let's see how they sound layered. Or actually, let's listen to the beatbox first. Again, the sample itself just sounds like it doesn't have any place or anything to do with this track, but I'm layering it with another sound, so it has a new character and a new place and a new sort of role in the track. And it's almost more in the background, to be honest, and just accentuates the first hit of the drop. As you can see, this is the first hit. Couple of interesting points I want to point at is, when you look at a sample like this, you should be able to immediately tell that this is actually naturally panned to the right, because you see the left side information, the right side information has some discrepancy, right? They're not equal. The right side is clearly louder, so this is naturally panned to the right. And as a result, I decided to pan the beatbox to the left. So we got the choir sample on the right, beatbox on the left. Just makes for a good stereo field, let's say. Let's listen to those two together. Yeah. Oh, actually, before we go any further, I just realized I forgot to show you guys how I process my drums. To be honest, my processing is, again, nothing too crazy. I'm a big fan of relying on good samples rather than, trying to take an okayish sample and turning it into a masterpiece or something like that. I use a drum bus. I saved this preset as Onacity drum bus, but it's really just 25% drive, 25% crunch, and everything else is just normal. Obviously, I'm leaving compressing off because I'm gonna be compressing later on. Yeah, that's as far as a little bit of saturation goes. The rest is just simple compression coming from TUX drum bus. Again, this is a preset within the TUX compressor over here. I did not touch a knob. The only knob I'm going to be messing with is threshold, because I usually get around somewhere between -4 to -5 dB of gain reduction, and then I'm making it up here. Very simple stuff. By the way, if you guys are confused as to why I have an Ableton compressor in the beginning and the end of the chain, it's purely for visual aid and nothing else. So as you can see, they're on dry wet. Let me actually play the drums here. So as you can see, while I'm playing the drums, I'm actually able to see the before and the after of what the sort of the waveform looks like and what kind of impact the compression has. The compressor has. So same story here, just for visual aid, and here I'm actually clipping the sample. Right here you can see there's quite a bit of clipping going on, and this is something I do at a later stage when I'm pretty much done with the track idea and just want to make sure every element has its room, and so pretty much in the mixing phase. Yeah, and these are obviously just metering plugins. Yeah, nothing going on here. Great, now let's go back to the lead sounds. We were done talking about the stabs, and the first major lead that you see over here is actually an instance of Diva layered with an instance of Serum and another instance of Serum. I'm going to play each of these sounds individually, and then we're going to see how they sound in a group. That's probably something you hear most out of the three layers. That's just going to add some more in there. that's taking care of the high end to give it a little bit of shine and dirt, if you like. None of these sounds are overly processed except for the main one, which is the first one coming from Diva. I have used an instance of overdrive. This preset actually is called Enhance. It's an Ableton preset, stock preset. Have it at 50% drive with no dynamics and 10% dry wet. So I'm only using it for 10% really, just to add a little bit of mid harmonics around 2700 hertz. And yeah, that's about that. Everything else is just normal standard stuff. There's nothing crazy going on here. Taking the lows out for all three of them, of course. And here's how they sound in a layer. And then there's the response here. And again. There you go. So yeah, I think what I want to point at is more of the variation, because I feel like if you are a producer and you're producing for a couple of years and maybe you're just you have made a couple of tracks but you're trying to take it to the next level, it's really just the small differences here and there. And that could be like a filter cutoff, change of one note, which is a good example here. This and this is almost identical. There's just one of the notes that goes down the scale by 2 semitones, I believe. Yes, 2 semitones. So we're in A minor and it goes down to G, this middle one. And yeah, more lead elements here we got is this sort of plucky sound, but it's, as you can tell, it's drenched in reverb. So that's my return channel. It's very simple, just the default version of Valhalla, and I'm taking the lows out at 330 hertz with a low cut. So that's my return channel over here, A, and I'm sending Diva into A over here, and that's also automated. I believe the automation, oh great, it's actually not even automated, so we can actually take these off. Great, so it's even more simpler than I thought. There you go, just drenched in reverb. This is coming after the first hit, so I wanted to give it kind of like some room to breathe, and almost acts as kind of like a swish, like a white noise. Like oftentimes people will have like these white noises that fall exactly on the clap, and on this occasion this is my version of that, let's say. And yeah, let's look at more lead elements. Again, this is a one shot. This is from the Toolroom sample pack. It's actually a bass loop, and I believe this was a loop, but I've just taken a part of it. Yep, there you go. Kind of similar creative process as the perks that I showed you guys earlier, where I'm just taking a small bit of an existing loop, and yeah, using it and giving it its own space in the track. Same story here, just chopped up some sample, some vocal chops. Yeah, nothing too crazy. I will say I'm a big fan of ear candy, kind of like one shots here and there. So although I say one shots, as mentioned before, I mostly take them from existing loops that I'll find, and I'll rip something off there. And yeah, that's the bulk of the lead elements. I would say this is kind of like the main lead, which is something you hear in the drop. And obviously it's layered. Most of the other sounds are pretty much good to go on its own. Here's a choir sample that actually keeps repeating throughout the whole track. Again, it's if you look at the volume, it's at minus 33.5 dB. It's pretty much very quiet. It's in the background, right? We're not really hearing it much. It's one of those elements that you only hear when it's taken out. Like when it's there, you don't really hear it, but the moment I take it out, you're gonna be like, wow, it feels a little empty. What went different, right? Actually, let's have a listen to all the lead elements only. And then I take this out, and you're gonna notice the difference that it makes. See, it just feels empty, but with it, there's like constant movement, and there's also difference of volume within this loop as well, which makes it great. Yeah, I'm using Shaper Box again, nothing too crazy, 60% dry wet, and we got a very basic shape here on 1/8 timing for it to pan left and right the whole time to give it more movement. In terms of other lead elements, you can see there's some one shots here and there. This is a vocal one shot. Another one from the Tool Room sample pack. I love all their sample packs, to be honest. And here is one kind of stab, I believe, from Diva. Yeah, very low in volume, and it's panned to the left as well. You can almost barely hear it. But yeah, I think those were pretty much all the major lead elements, I would say. Let me now, I guess, play all the lead elements, and the vocals actually in the same group, just because it's sharing the same sidechain as the other lead elements in the drop. So I didn't feel like it would require its own group. But hindsight right now, if I was gonna rework this track now after almost 1 year of producing it, I would have probably had a separate vocal track to kind of give it maybe a different sidechain, or automate the sidechain mix knob or whatnot. But we didn't do that in this occasion. So let me actually mute the vocal and just play all the elements that we have covered so far. Where are we? Here. Great. Yeah, I think we've covered all the major elements, but there is what I would call an elephant in the room, which is the vocal. Now, as you can tell from the title of the vocal and everything, and the recording here being mono, this was actually an original vocal. This is not something off of Splice. This is not something off of the internet or YouTube or anything like that. This is something that I recorded here in my studio. Let me repeat that again. This is actually my vocal that I recorded here in the studio. The lyrics were also pretty much brainstormed by me, and yeah, I recorded this all by myself. Actually using this mic right here, which is the Rode mic. I see a lot of people use the Shure mic too. They're all great. As long as you have a condenser mic, I think you should 100% try to create something with your vocal. I am by no means a singer. I have no vocal training, no sense of tune or anything like that, but I wanted to use my own vocals, and I went for it, and it worked out. And it actually gave me a lot of confidence, and I realized it's actually not that difficult, especially with the modern software and everything that you have. It's very easy to use them to try to benefit yourself into being more original, if I frame that right. Yeah, I guess the first important thing is manipulator, which I think is what gives the voice that gnarly, sort of dark, commanding feel that I was going for, to match the vibe of this track. So let's actually take that off. I think that will give you guys a more realistic picture of what I really sound like behind the microphone. Here you go.
Drop the bass, let's shake the ground. Move your body, don't turn around. Back to back into your mind. Side to side, look so divine.
Great. I mean, that was, to say the least, painful to listen to, but glad on the grand scheme of things, I actually got the job done. So, yeah, credits to Manipulator and my processing chain here, which I'm going to dive deep into over here. First thing in the chain, we got a vocal doubler. Again, this is optional. I don't always use it. I think, especially now, I barely ever use it. I think I've used my vocals later many times in many other tracks. And I would generally just do a second and third take to kind of double up my vocal, and give it more volume and space, rather, instead of using VST for doubling or something. Same story here with the compressor. We are just using the visual aid, one before and one after, and I think the difference is pretty clear. You can take a look at the visual, and you can immediately recognize the compression that's going on here.
Drop the bass, let's shake the ground.
Look at that.
Move your body, don't turn around. Back to back into your mind.
There you go. Actually, we're gonna leave the manipulator on. It's feels better that way. But yeah, if I know a lot of people are gonna look at this chain and go like, oh wow, what is this chain? And to be completely honest with you, this is the chain that I bought from Reed Stefan. He is a great guy that does tutorial on YouTube for not necessarily dance music, but he does pop and a little bit of everything. And he has his own website called Whole Loops, and they actually sell a bunch of Ableton sort of racks, if you want to call it that. And they're great because they're entirely using Ableton stock plugin, which is great for your CPU. It's not going to be too heavy. And secondly, I think it's one of those, most of the racks that I found over there are pretty much what you'd call one-stop shop. Like, you buy them, you can throw it on to anything and tweak a few knobs here and there, and it gets the job done. And this is exactly one such knob. And I'm a big fan of like workflow. For me, I don't like over processing thing, or I don't like the idea of needing to overthink things. So for me, this is like perfect. Like, you know, these kind of plugins, like you know, Kickstart, you just throw it on, gets the job done. Endless Smile gets the job done, and so forth. I love those softwares, VSTs. And same story here. We got different types of delays, a glue compression, a low cut, obviously to take the low cut out after you add saturation here, which is essentially brightness, and then there's a slap delay as well. Obviously, if you have the parameters of automating for creative purposes. And we got a DSR again from T-Rex. Some EQ happening here, dynamic EQ, taking some bits and pieces out because maybe I'm guessing these are a little bit of annoying frequencies. And we're also boosting the high here with the high shelf. And we got time travel echo, and then we got slapback. So these are both, you know, what you'd call Ableton presets for echo. I highly recommend playing around with the Ableton presets before you jump out and, you know, grab some VST out there just because your best friend's using it, or just because you saw some YouTuber using it. I think a lot of the Ableton stuff is quite underrated, and should definitely get your hands dirty with those first. Yeah, that's about that, I think, as far as the chain goes. Again, I'm not gonna go too deep into this chain because it's not a chain that I made. You know, there's a lot going on here. I think, you know, once I start opening, you're gonna notice it's like a whole rabbit hole. Okay, I didn't really mean to say that, but anyways, yeah, it's a whole, you know, whole another video or chapter, I would say. So, but point is, I didn't make this. It's something I bought off Reed Stefan, and I thought it was a great, you know, one-stop shop plugin for vocals, and I've been using it since then, and I've not been disappointed. Especially if it makes my vocal sounds like the way it does now. I can imagine it probably does wonders for actual vocalists and proper singers that are out there. Because obviously I'm not one. Let's just get that straight. I'm not a singer, and I'm not a vocalist either. It's just I try. So yeah, let's have a listen before and after processing. So this is before with manipulator on.
Drop the bass, let's shake the ground. Move your body, don't turn around. Back to back into your mind. Side to side, look so divine.
Again, so many differences of peaks and volumes. Sounds very jittery, very dry, not very clear. And certainly not the type of vocal that sounds like production quality. But boom, with all the processing on.
Drop the bass, let's shake the ground. Move your body, don't turn around. Back to back into your mind. Side to side, look so divine.
Great. You know, certainly does a whole lot better. It does sound a whole lot better. If I'm being completely honest though, if I was gonna record this vocal right now, after almost 1 year later, I would have probably changed quite a few things in terms of the recording. I think I'll probably retake a lot of these parts, and certainly I'll try to naturally get these volumes right, which I think I'm much more capable of now than I was a year ago. But yeah, I think because there's so many elements in the track, it actually, the what you would call artifacts or defects within the vocal recording actually doesn't shine through that much, which is great. Kind of like masks all the defects, I would say. Right, so I think those were all the major sort of elements as far as the drop, the lead, the drums, and the bass and the kick goes. Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about automation here. Obviously, one other thing that I'm sure a lot of you might notice is that I always have some of the major loops that I have over here, which I'm using, let's say, in the drop right here. So these are the loops that are constant in the drop. And these perks are obviously only there in the drop and not in the break. As a result, they're not a part of this group, and this group is pretty much constant, or at least parts of it is constant throughout the whole track. So I do need to use, I group them so I can use some automation for, you know, build up and transitions and so forth. So as you can see, I have a chain over here, very simple chain, Endless Smile by Data Life. Love the plugin. One knob gets the job done. We got an auto filter taking the highs out over here down to 7,000 hertz, and we're also taking the volume out for all the break sections. So we got build up, we're out down by 3 decibels, taking the break again all the way until the next drop, down by 3 decibels, right here. Yeah, again, just an automation thing. I think it's a small step, but it makes a massive difference in making sure your drop hits hard. Great. Yeah, in terms of other processing, obviously we got some effects and risers and snares and so forth. I'll just quickly go through them right now. Your usual, you know, white noise just rising up, and then we got an instance of diva, which I believe is kind of acting as a riser. Yeah, so obviously this has a little bit of pitch bend on it. It's going you know, from 0 all the way up, and if you look at the frequency, this is pretty much filling up what you'd call low and mid frequencies, because the high end is already busy with, you know, with the mid and high ends are already busy with the vocal and the drums that are washing out with Endless Smile and whatnot. So I really wanted to kind of like make some movement in the low and mid frequencies, and that's what this was all about. And yeah, this is just a small quick little riser for 1 bar, which actually it's not even a riser. I think it's just an impact. It's yeah, there you go. It's a reverse impact, which I've taken a little bit out of to kind of accentuate and flow into the drop. In terms of break elements, I believe there is an arpeggiator somewhere. I believe it's this one. Yeah, so this one's slowly building up. I'm basically modulating the frequency modulation knob, which I believe could be envelope 2. Yep, envelope 2. So this is what's basically rising. Envelope 2 controlling the cutoff frequency for diva, and that's rising. So it goes all the way up, and in the second build it's actually going down, because again, we're taking elements out as we get closer to the drop in the build, so the drop hits hard. Let's actually listen to the second build up.
Drop the bass, let's shake the ground. Move your body, don't turn around. Back to back into your mind. Side to side, look so divine. Let the music take control. Build the rhythm, lose your soul. Move in sync now to the beat. Put this jam on full beat. Full beat.
Great. Couple of other things I wanna show is actually the creative sort of EQ, not EQ, sorry, the echo that's going on over here, kind of like delays that I'm using to create this kind of like delay throw effect. Just listen to this over here. Oh, where did it go? There it is.
Put this jam on full beat.
Yeah, so that is predominantly, you know, the slapback delay, or echo rather, which is obviously going up in dry and wet, but also the feedback is going up, and that's what's giving it this sort of like non-stop, like constant, you know, repetition. And we're also filtering it out as we're heading towards the drop. Same principle, just to make the drop hit hard. And we also got the 1/4 delay from our actual vocal chain that's also sort of playing halfway through, just to make sure that this half and this half sounds different. That's it. I think, yeah, that's, so you can always use, you know, vocal throws, or rather, you know, delay throws like this to kind of like transition between different sections, but also to bring variation. Because if you look at build 1 over here, it's very vocal heavy. Build 2, because we already have a break which has the same vocals, I did not want build 2 to be vocal heavy, because that just makes it sound monotonous. So I covered it up with other elements like the ARP over here and a couple of other newly introduced sort of strings, risers rather, right here as well. And also the first build did not have snare rolls, but the second one does. So yeah, what I've done is taken the vocals out, just let them flow with that delay throw, and I've added a bunch of other elements in the second build, so it just sounds very different from the first build. And I think, yeah, adding these elements definitely makes a world of difference. And also, I'm a big fan of repurposing sounds. So as you can see here in the break, we actually have this sort of what you'd call sort of like a string saw-ish kind of sound. And all I'm doing is I'm using the same sound here after the vocal comes in, and then we go into the break. I'm using the same sound, but I've actually raised it 1 octave. So again, a good example of repurposing. There you go. That's an octave up. That's an octave down. So yeah, just repurposing the sound, I think is something that's underrated as well. And to fill in the fills and the transition, here we got some, your typical snare rolls. And again, hard pan to the left, just some Cashmere effects loops, I believe. Yes. Great. I think that's pretty much sums it up. In terms of second drop, interestingly, and this is very common, I often see like people make second drops that always adds a new element, which is great. I do that too myself. On this occasion, however, because there was already so many elements, I just thought we're only gonna play with the rhythm, and that's what I did. Let's have a quick listen here.
Put this jam on full repeat.
Great. So all I did was take all the drums out on the first bar, take the second, third, and fourth kick out, and that pretty much gives it this sort of fake drop-ish effect. So you have this one bar of kind of like fake drop, and then the actual rest of the elements just come through. I think in terms of the only element that gets added here in the drop 2 is just this atmosphere sample. Again, just something in the background to give that first hit after the fake drop a lot of impact. And yeah, every other element are basically same as the ones in the first drop, I would say. Same thing happens in the second part of the second drop. We take the first bar drums out here.
Jam on full repeat.
We haven't really talked about this section, but this is actually nothing crazy. It's really a bunch of elements that I thought introducing them could be very jarring. I used reverb to kind of create a reverb tail, and then I reversed it, and then we get into the element that I'm trying to introduce. A good example would be let's see, over here in the drop, as you can see, the word put. This is a put reverse, meaning the word put, I've just used the first bit of the p sound, and I've basically used a washed out reverb, resampled it, reversed it. So when put this jam on full repeat is actually set over here, this is what leads into it. So let's listen to it. Now let's listen to it with the vocal.
Put this jam on full repeat.
That's it. So yeah, there's a couple of elements here, basically reversing a few of the sounds in the track. And I mean, you don't necessarily always have to use this just for reversing in purpose or like transitioning purpose. As I talked about repurposing sounds in your projects earlier, you can easily use them as like, background elements as well, constantly running throughout the track. So feel free to experiment with that. I think that covers majority of the important stuff that I actually wanted to talk about, or that I thought was unique about this track, or that the techniques that I used. I hope you guys were able to take a few points home, learn a thing or two, maybe if it wasn't anything new, we're able to maybe brush up on some of the techniques that you already know. Maybe if you didn't use them in a while, might be good to get used to using them. But yeah, that's pretty much that, and we'll call it a day here. Thank you for watching, and yeah, your boy's out. Peace.